Now, how long does it take to redraw the borders of a country? 3 weeks if you're President Putin. Yes, he added Crimea to his Russian Empire in just 21 days from start to finish. Alex Salmond must be blue-green with envy. But has the British reporting of events in Crimea been too one-sided, even unfairly anti-Russian? Has Barack Obama announces further sanctions today? Is the West's approach working, or will it backfire? We turn to Telegraph columnist Liam Halligan. He's lived and worked extensively in Russia. This is his take of the week.
This Crimea crisis has shown Western diplomacy to be firmly stuck in the 20th century. Talk of a new Cold War is deeply alarmist and staggeringly outdated. Western politicians have demeaned themselves, posturing before each other and domestic electorates. We've made threats to Russia we just can't keep, completely misplaying our hand. Now, limited sanctions are already in place, but our leaders want more. Yet any further action will be deeply counterproductive. Russia's the EU's third largest trading partner and Germany's biggest overall, and more Cold War argy-bargy and a possible Ukrainian sovereign default could yet spark another Lehman moment, bringing havoc to global markets. Now, Western media reports invariably diss Russia. We're right, they're wrong, end of story, monsieur. When it comes to reporting Russia, even the pretense of balance goes straight out the window, as we console ourselves that the Western world always and everywhere has the moral high ground, and Vladimir Putin is nothing but a power-hungry despot who wants to kill us in our beds. Of course Russians in Crimea want closer ties with Moscow, and of course many Russian speakers across Ukraine were alarmed at the ousting of a democratically elected president by rioting, rock-throwing thugs that were backed by the West. Russian soldiers, meanwhile, have long had the right to be stationed in Crimea. Did more cross the border and actually invade Ukraine? Maybe, or maybe not. I've yet to see clear invasion footage. This Crimea crisis has set back East-West relations and upended the broader diplomatic landscape. The US and EU are split, Germany's re-emerged as a major diplomatic player, and Russia and China have moved closer together. We British, in my view, have been shrill, disingenuous, and shown a lack of understanding. The Cold War's over, guys. The Soviet Union's no more. There's a new world order, and Russia has a major role to play.
And from the Maribana restaurant in Knightsbridge, which is now Moscow's wealthiest suburb, to our own little collection of oligarchs here in the heart of Westminster. Liam Halligan, welcome.
Evening.
Why have you got such a rosy view of Mr. Putin?
I don't think I've got a rosy view, I just think I've got a balanced view. And I think many of my brothers and sisters in the Western media have got a skewed view. And you know, this guy is spectacularly popular in his own country. He's got very high approval ratings because, as far as Russians are concerned, the majority of them, he's turned the economy around, he's restored their national pride, he's taken on the oligarchs, he's taxed the oil and gas companies, and he's given them back some self-respect.
He's also a rather nasty authoritarian, isn't he? I mean, he controls the media, he runs a regime which discriminates against homosexuals, and there's very little freedom now left in Russia.
I don't know how much time you spent in Russia in the last 20 years, Andrew, but I've been going to Russia regularly.
He doesn't control the media?
I spent a lot of time living in Russia. I first lived there in the early 90s, and the change from the early... This was the most authoritarian society in the world within my lifetime, 25 years ago. And if you compare it what was then to what it is now, the progress is enormous.
There's no major media outlet in the country, all of which is spewing out anti-Ukrainian propaganda at the moment, that he doesn't control.
That's just not true. There are many, many independent newspapers in Russia, independent television channels.
You just closed down the last two or put Kremlin people into them.
You can walk along the Stary Arbat in central Moscow and stand on a soapbox and say exactly what you like. Of course, it's not as pluralistic as many Western countries, but 25 years ago it was a totalitarian dictatorship. What's the direction of travel here? The direction of travel is almost entirely to the good.
Is there any doubt in your mind that he effectively annexed Crimea?
Well, I think there are two sides to the story. On the one hand, if Crimea becomes part of Russia, and it's not entirely clear that will happen, there could be a deal cut without Kiev's say-so, then that's a transgression of international law. On the other hand, you have enshrined in the UN Charter the right to self-determination, which the Crimean people have clearly expressed. Also, the Russians would say, Andrew, that the current Ukrainian government is completely illegitimate, and almost any objective commentator would agree with
Well,
them.
the Russians aren't
Yanukovych wasn't popular.
Well, he's a kleptocrat.
Yanukovych wasn't popular, but you know, because I know you do your research, Andrew, and I respect you for it, that the 2010 OSCE report said of Yanukovych's election, let me finish, it was fair, quotes, it was pluralistic, quotes, it was a good example of democracy. We have now backed a situation where the Ukrainian people weren't allowed to unelect that guy. That's the irony. Next year, they would have unelected him. We stopped that happening. We stopped that happening. Are you proud of that as a Westerner, as a Democrat, as somebody that's interested in pluralistic politics?
I don't think my pride is the issue here.
No, but you're defending a situation where we removed a democratically elected politician.
We didn't do that. The Ukrainian people did that.
With an awful lot of Western endorsement and Western backing and Western leaders standing with megaphones in central Kiev screaming the odds.
One final question. Are you in any doubt that once he did become the leader, he just filled his boots with Russian support? That he is a kleptocrat?
Yeah, look, this is
correct.
Look, Russia, Ukraine, many parts of many emerging markets, many parts of the developing world, there are grubby fusions of money and politics going on. They're nascent capitalist societies, like we were a nascent capitalist society at the end of the 19th century. It's not pretty, but at least these guys, they're trying to adopt democracy. These things take time.
All right.
But are we right to upend the path of Ukrainian democracy by effectively intervening to stop a politician who'd become unpopular from being democratically unelected as he was democratically elected? I have major concerns as a British person that we're involved in a situation that stopped that natural progression of Ukrainian democracy from happening.
Okay. I think the extent of our involvement is highly limited. But let me come. Liam finished his piece saying that Russia is a formidable power now and the West can't afford not to respect it. It's a player on the international stage. On this programme 2 weeks ago, you said that Russia is a country that is breaking up and going down the pan.
Yeah, I don't know if those were my exact words, but I think that is the direction of travel. I mean, I agree with a great deal of what Liam said. And at one point he said that the Russian people respect him for restoring the Russian economy. I think that is largely illusory because the Russian economy is totally dependent on oil, which is a very variable price commodity. The ruble has, of course, sunk very, very badly during this crisis. I think the Russian economy is delicate. I think the state of the peoples of the Russian Federation is very delicate. I think they face a major Islamist and terrorist threat. And I think they're desperate to maintain the balance of Slavs and Muslims within the Russian Federation. So I see all of those things as weaknesses.
Let me get Liam to reply. Let him reply to that, then I'll come back.
Okay.
No, because you're pressing to get in, so on you go.
No, okay, all I'd say is that, you know, I've spent most of my adult life studying the Russian economy from literally the early 90s onward. And back in 2003, the Russian economy was 40% oil and gas. It's now 15% oil and gas, less than Norway. Yes, of course, it is a hydrocarbon superpower, but Russia's service sector is 3 times bigger than its oil and gas sector. It is a myth to say that this is entirely a petro economy. It's diversifying incredibly quickly, as any decent emerging market investor will tell you. It's not true to say also that the population's declining. Everyone says that all the time. Russia now has a birth rate that's higher than the EU average, and the decline in population that they saw was far less than almost any other East European country.
Well, it won't be.
So we believe what we want to believe because we have a Cold War mentality that we have to hammer these guys and beat them into the ground. That's not right. We should be trading with these guys and treating them as partners.
I need to bring Diane, because one way to get your population to increase is to annex everybody around you. But Diane, they're now talking about tougher sanctions. Is this the right way forward or not?
I don't think there's any point rattling sabres that we're not prepared to draw. The EU will not go for serious economic sanctions because Germany is Russia's biggest trading partner. And there is a view in the House of Commons, you know, not just, I don't know, people in the
But Russia isn't Germany's biggest trading partner.
Yeah, but
it's not.
Yeah, yes, but I'm saying
it's its biggest single country trading partner. The EU is.
The amount of Russia is Germany's 11th biggest export market. 11th.
My point is simply a parliamentary
No, but
point.
combined imports and
Hold on,
exports,
let Diane
Andrew.
speak.
But
Well,
you're wrong.
My point is just a parliamentary point, that increasingly MPs on the right of the Tory party and also in my own party are wondering why we're getting drawn into this
Right.
antagonistic
So
posture
we shouldn't do
when
anything?
we can't. Well,
What should we do?
but we
Nothing?
can't follow through.
Well, no, but I'm asking you, all right, so we shouldn't do anything. That's the conclusion of what you say.
There's a feeling the EU may have mishandled it in the first place.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I know that. But what is the Diane Abbott policy towards Russia?
Me about Bench, I don't have a policy.
Well, you must have a view. You're paid to have
view,
views. That's why you're on here.
my view is that there may be token travel sanctions we can impose.
No, that's your fear. I'm asking what you would do. Nothing.
My view is that there may be token travel and visa
I know that's
sanctions.
your view, but I'm trying to find out what you would do, and you won't tell me.
I've told you what I would do.
What would you do? Nothing.
I keep telling you what I would do. There are token sanctions you can
So you would
impose.
go along with this?
There are token sanctions, but when it comes to serious trade sanctions, they are not
So
going
you're in
to
favour
happen.
of token sanctions?
Well, obviously, we have to express our displeasure.
Very well.